Hi, I am Dr. Melonie Boone, and welcome to episode 2 of Moments with Melonie, where we're going to talk about the power of self-reflection and how to gain clarity and more direction in life. And so, as you all know, if you tuned in to episode 1, I am Dr. Melonie Boone, a business psychologist, as well as a behavioral scientist who loves to explore through self-discovery how I can help others to live to their fullest potential. And so this episode really is about how we can use self-reflection as a powerful tool to help us through any situation. I'll also say if you did not see episode 1, you'll note that I really want this to be more than just opinion. And so I'll be looking down occasionally, got notes about some of the research around self-reflection and its importance. I just really want to give everyone super practical tools that you can use in your day-to-day to help out. And so, in this world that I feel like is constantly pushing us, right? It's pushing us to achieve more, it's pushing us to move faster. We are consuming so much information, more information, I'll date myself, than I could say we used to 10 or 15 years ago. Maybe I won't date myself too much. But we're really there's all of these influences that we see every day, whether it's through the news, social media, streaming, podcasts, LinkedIn. I could go on and on about all of the places that we're consuming information. And it sometimes forces us to think, am I doing enough? Am I successful enough? Is my career where it should be? I just graduated from college yesterday. Why don't I have a corner office and a 6-figure salary yet? But all of these influences can sometimes be a little bit more harm than they are good for us. And so in a world that's constantly pushing us like that, we rarely take the moment to slow down and to look inwardly to understand ourselves and what our responses and reactions are to all of the stimuli that we are receiving every single day. Not to mention the internal voice and the push that we have on ourselves. Sometimes we can be harder on ourselves than anyone else can possibly be. And so it's really important that you understand that self-reflection can be one of the most powerful tools to really help you in gaining clarity. It helps to improve your decision-making, and it also aligns with our purpose. So let's dig in. I will start with sharing. I actually just recently went through a moment where I had to step back. There was a moment where I became extremely frustrated. And I'm going to say I experienced a feeling that I hadn't experienced in a long time. It's an experience that I thought I wasn't going to have to experience anymore. You feel like you've gotten to a certain point or a certain level and you've made a certain amount of achievements, and you go through this thing where all of a sudden you're feeling like you are back at day one or back at step one, where maybe you have to prove yourself, or maybe you have to go back and try to earn whatever the respect is or whatever it is. And so I took a day. And, one thing I say in one of my tools to help in those situations, because I was feeling pretty bad, but one of the tools that I use, and I didn't do this earlier in my career, but a few years ago, it's kind of a lesson that I picked up from my mom. But she used to ask me, what are you going to do about it? That was her big thing, is what are you going to do about it? And don't stew in it too long. And she actually say, don't sit in the shit too long. My mom was pretty funny. But I created this rule, depending on the situation, I was going to give myself no more than 24 to 48 hours to feel whatever the emotion, the anger, the frustration. Just give myself 24 hours to acknowledge those feelings and to be in it. And then after that, I need to figure out what I learned from it. And back to what my mom used to say, what I'm going to do about it. And so I did that recently, and, it was really interesting to see patterns and how they change. So in my house, I'm here with my husband and my 2 children, 22 and 16, and they can recognize now when I'm in those moments. And so I crawled up on the sofa, I set a fire in the fireplace, I got a blanket, left the TV off, and was just kind of sitting, staring into space. My baby girl came and gave me a kiss and left me alone. My husband asked me if I needed some tea, gave me my tea, left me alone. My son's 22. He's always leaving me alone because he's scared I'm going to ask him to clean his room. But it was just in that moment that I had to sit and to reflect on the situation and think about like how I showed up. I was not proud of how I showed up in a couple of instances there. I thought about how other people showed up, how they impacted me, how I impacted them, the energy that I allowed to honestly just be drained from me. And, I do this thing, people I coach, I used to tell them to think about your energy as dollars, right? And where do you want to spend your energy dollars? Because your energy dollars are very valuable. So in that moment of self-reflection, I realized I let somebody make my energy dollar bank account negative. And I never want to be in that place. And that's a place that I used to sit in earlier in my career. And that's not a place that I want to sit in today. And so that self-reflection in that moment of peace allowed me to really think about how I want to show up and what change I need to make in myself. And then what change do I need to see in others? And, one of the things that I learned is that you have to give yourself the time, the space, and the grace to really reflect when you're in situations. And so I'll repeat that. You have to give yourself the time, the space, and the grace. Like, you have to give yourself the grace that you would give somebody else who's going through something difficult. Like, give that to yourself, which is very hard sometimes for us to do. I know it was very hard for me to do in the beginning because I felt selfish and I have to give more to this person or give more to that person. And how can I take a whole day just to sit and think about a situation and try to figure out how I'm going to come out of it? But I realized that that is actually the best investment of my energy dollars, is to invest it in myself. Because if I can't show up for the people who depend on me, and if I can't show up well for the people around me, then it's not really good for anybody. It's not good for them, and it's not good for me either. And so, self-reflection, I'll give you the definition. It is the conscious practice of examining our thoughts and behaviors and experiences to learn from them. So self-reflection, again, is the conscious practice of examining our thoughts, behaviors, and experiences to learn from them. And so when you give yourself the space and the grace to self-reflect, you actually will come out of it better than when you don't. So there's research around this in the field of positive psychology. And so I found out about positive psychology when I started studying for my PhD in 2016, 2017, the year, I think it was 2017. And it was so powerful. I can't even get my words out. It's like learning about positive psychology, positive leadership. I always felt like I would do these things and I'm motivated and I'm resilient and I'm optimistic. And I didn't understand what that meant for me and how I could truly harness it until I studied positive psychology, in particular, psychological capital. And psychological capital is an individual state of hope, efficacy, resilience, and optimism, and how you can harness the power of positive psychological capital to build up yourself and your teams. And I wrote a book on the team part of it called Heroic Leadership: The Secret to Developing Stronger, More Productive Teams Using Psychological Capital. I probably just messed that title up. I do all the time. But really the point of it is what I learned in that research from reading hundreds and hundreds of articles and literature and books about positive psychology is that, like, it can help. And in the space of self-reflection, positive psychology has found that it leads to greater emotional intelligence, improved problem solving, and stronger decision making. And what's really great about whether it's psychological capital, positive leadership, or any of the realms of positive psychology is that they can be learned. It can be trained. Like, you can train yourself to look at things from these other perspectives. A Harvard Business Review study in 2014 also found that employees who take the time to reflect on their work experiences are typically 23 times more productive than employees or people who don't take moments of self-reflection. And the reason for this is because self-reflection allows us to extract the lessons from the past and apply them to future challenges. And so again, like, I keep repeating myself because this is really important. Like, self-reflection will allow you to take those lessons from the past. So this is not about I failed. This is not about I messed up. And this is not about who did what to me. It's more about how was I in that moment? What lessons can I learn from that moment? And then how can I leverage that to be even better in the future and to build myself? So now, another thing that I want to do here, I don't want to just talk about self-reflection and throw a lot of theory at you because I can't get super nerdy about this stuff. But I do want to tell you how you can actually use self-reflection to be more effective, right? And so the first thing you want to do, now that we've learned a little bit about why self-reflection is so powerful, we want to talk about how we can incorporate it into our daily lives. So here's some practical techniques. And this one I just did, which was really a great exercise. You can either do this through journaling or you can do this just through honestly talking to yourself. I had a really, really great conversations with myself in a 24-hour period. Probably didn't get as much sleep as I wanted to, but it was very helpful. So the first question I asked myself is what actually went well in that situation and why? And the reason why you want to do that is it's almost like human nature for us to look at all the negatives. Like if you sit down and give your someone a performance review, for example, or you give someone feedback, you can say 99 positive things and one area of improvement, and you will find that the person anchors on the area of improvement that you pointed out. And so you want to be intentional with yourself. Again, giving ourselves the space and the grace. Like you want to be intentional about looking at, there were pieces of this that went well, right? There are positive learnings that I can get from some of this. And what are those things? So that's your first question. What went well and why? The next question you want to ask yourself is, what really was the challenge that you faced and how did you handle it? And this is a place where you're going to have to kind of take your blinders off a little bit, and you're going to have to look from your perspective, from other people's perspectives in that situation to really understand what did you just go through and how did you handle it? And one of the things that I noted in this most recent situation is there are some things that I did not handle very well. I did not show up the way that I would expect myself to show up in a situation because it built and it built and it built. I didn't set the example that I would want to set for others in certain parts of that situation. And so I have to own up to like my piece of it. But then I also looked at what were some of the behaviors that got me to that situation. What are ways that I can address that directly? We'll have a future episode on having difficult conversations because I tend to be pretty good at that after 20 some years in HR. But I really just took the time to say like what part of it was me and then what part of it or what was the impact from others? What were my energy dollars that I spent and did I get any good energy dollars back basically is how I think through it in my mind. And then this final question was like, what emotions did I experience and what triggered them? And so I experienced a myriad of emotions. I was angry. I was frustrated. I was stressed. I felt overwhelmed. I worried about trust. Did I make the right decisions? Have I made a mistake? What's going to happen now? And of course, with the brain that I described earlier, my brain went on all ends of the spectrum in this situation. And then I thought about like what triggered all of those emotions, and what really triggered it was a feeling that I had not felt in a very long time. It was a feeling that I thought that, again, I had grown beyond. It's a feeling that I thought, or a situation that I thought, I experienced earlier in life, and I thought I had beyond that, and I reached a certain point. So the trigger was an uncomfortable feeling. And I think the biggest thing is that I thought I'd never have to feel again because I've gotten to a certain point in life or career or whatever we want to call it. And that was very tough for me. And so as I went through that moment, it was a moment of clarity, honestly, to realize that the trigger actually wasn't the person or the people. But the trigger was like, holy shit, like I thought I made it to a certain level and I wouldn't have to deal with this crap. And I'm dealing with it again, right? And then what do I learn from that? What do I do? How do I move differently the next time it happens? Are some of the key takeaways that kind of grappled with to get to a better understanding when I gave myself the 24-hour space and grace to reflect on this. Another thing that you can do is use the stop, start, continue method. And so this is applied in a lot of different ways. I have used start, stop, continue with leadership teams, with C-suite teams. I've used it with individuals that I've coached in the past. But really what you want to look at is stop, right? So what's holding you back that you need to stop doing? My response, reaction, I don't even know what to call it. It might be something that I recognize that I need to, it is something I recognize that I need to stop, right? So think about that. Like, what is that thing that you need to stop doing? And then how can you be intentional about that in the future? The next thing you want to look at is what are the things you need to start doing? So what's the new habit or behavior that will move you forward, right? So what can you create out of this moment that, again, you can leverage to propel you forward and to make you show up differently the next time this situation happens? And then the last thing is the continue, right? And this is where I say we often forget the positive side of adversity with what's working well that you should keep doing. Like, there are a lot of pieces of me. There's a lot to my response and my reaction that were really great and that I will continue to do again. But I have to be honest with myself that there were some things and some reactions that I could have controlled better. So there are some things that I need to stop. The other thing too is, like, if you just take 5 minutes of your time every day, either when you wake up or before you go to bed, to really, really reflect on the events of the last 24 hours, and you do that consistently, it can lead to transformational change. I actually was talking to my daughter. She's just turned 17. I was going to say 16. She just turned 17. And I was telling her about this podcast. And I was like, I call her Meech. So, Meechy, do you want to be on a podcast with me? And she said, yes. And I was like, well, what will your topic be? And she said that I want my topic to be about perseverance. And I asked her why. And, last year in May, she was diagnosed with complex regional pain syndrome, which, if anyone knows, CRPS is one of the most painful illnesses or ailments, one of the least studied. It has something to do with the nerves, with the central nervous system. It causes a great deal of pain. And for her, it affects her entire left leg from toe to her hip joint. She did not walk for about 10 months when she was diagnosed last May. We were in the hospital May, June, July, August, and September, from anywhere from 1 to 3 week stints each month, with the doctors trying to figure out what's happening. And I used a lot of my learnings from positive psychology and from self-reflection. And so she and I would lay in the hospital bed, or we would lay in her bed in her room, and we would just talk about, like, let's talk about what you're feeling. Let's talk about, she's never been sick before. This was very traumatizing for the family. We were being rushed to the ER. She was fainting. Like, it was just a lot, and it was a lot for her. And, one of the things that I talked to her about is, like, the healing power of positivity, the healing power of positive energy, of reflecting on what's happening to you so that we can understand that, like, this is not where you're always going to be, but what can we learn from it in this moment? And one great example of her perseverance is we were in the hospital and she had been up for probably close to 24 hours, just in so much pain. And it was around 5 o'clock in the morning. I stayed with her the entire time. So I'm on the very uncomfortable sofa chair things. If you've ever stayed in the hospital, even with our pillows and blankets and all of her stuffies and toys, it was still a very uncomfortable few nights for me. And around 5 a.m., a bunch of the interns came in and the doctors, and Anna had just been crying. And she looked over at the interns that came in, and I don't know if they were interns, but they were definitely learning, because we were at a learning hospital. And she looked at them and she said, you all look like you need a hug. I give really good hugs. I can give you we call it the positive healing energy to make you feel better. And in her moment, as she and I reflected on our conversation of what we would put in a podcast, but, like, just in that moment, she was able to put her pain and her feelings to the side. She gave like 10 hugs. It was absolutely amazing. One lady was in tears because she couldn't believe it, how strong Anna was being and how she was trying to lift everybody else up. And, we reflect on those moments, and like what we can learn from them. And to hear her talk about now that she wants to share her story of like perseverance and how she is able to reflect on all of the things that have happened to her that were so unexpected, but also reflect on, the recovery that she's had and the fact that after being homeschooled for a year and a half, she's going to be able to go back to school. And I actually registered her last week, which felt crazy because we were told she would need to be institutionalized and she'd never walk again. And like all of these things that, she and I continually reflect on. And we reflect on it not to sit in the pain that we experience, but we reflect on it to remind ourselves of our ability to heal ourselves, the ability to heal each other through this process. And then eventually when she's on with me, it'll be the ability to hopefully help and heal others. And so like that is truly the power of self-reflection. It can heal the mind, body, and the spirit. And I have seen it happen in many, many situations that I won't go into because, as I like to say, this is Moments with Melonie, not hours or days with Melonie. So as we wrap up, I just want to leave with some closing thoughts and some takeaways here. To remember that like self-reflection is the biggest gift that you can give yourself. It helps you break free from this autopilot mode. Like we wake up, we go to work, school, whatever, work from home, take care of the kids, go to sleep, wake up, and we do these cycles. Whatever your cycle is, we do it over and over and over again. And we do get into an autopilot mode. I have been there before, but self-reflection can help you not only break free from the autopilot mode, but also take control of your life and do it with intention and clarity. So I encourage you to take the 5 minutes. I encourage you to give yourself the space and the grace to take the 20 minutes, 24 hours, whatever you need. You can try journaling. You can try meditation. You can try what I did. I just randomly stared at a fire for a few hours with no TV, no phone, no anything. And that helped. And you can always like share your experiences. So I challenge everyone to share your experiences with others. You can use the hashtag Moments with Melonie to share, because as a community, we can build each other up and we can create support. And life is so nuanced, and you never know what your story is going to do for somebody else or how your story is going to help someone else. So I challenge you to share those insights. I would also love to hear it. I believe that I will learn until the day that I can no longer learn. Hopefully that's way, way far off. But I enjoy learning from others. If you enjoyed this episode, if you've enjoyed episode 1 of Moments with Melonie, if you want more, be sure to subscribe. You can leave a review. You can share with someone who could use a little reflection in their own lives. We're on Spotify, Apple, we're everywhere, iHeartRadio. So you can find this podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Intel Noir. Intel Noir is a podcast production that I'm the founder of that is used to help create and elevate people's stories through Biana Studios. And then until next time, like keep growing, keep learning, keep sharing and lifting up others, and keep working to become the best version of yourself. And I will do the same. So I will see you all on episode 3 of Moments with Melonie. Thank you.